Yo, welcome to episode 3. Episode 3, baby, of Crazed Conversations. Look, I'm your host, Kendrick Lattimore, and this is our reset. Now, if you guys have been keeping up with me for episode 1 and episode 2, you guys know that we talked about current events. We talked about things that were polarizing in the community. Luckily, I had an opportunity to meet with Create with Me Productions. Make sure you guys follow her on Instagram, right? It's Create with Me Productions, okay? She also made sure that we had a beautiful microphone so that you guys can hear us clearly, okay? So, Create with Me Productions, she sat down with me and she had a production meeting asking me some very hard questions like, who am I? What is my voice? Where do I see this podcast heading? And what do I want to give to you guys, my listeners? And I thought for a moment and I'm like, I do love current events. I do love all of that jazz, but it's so many people already doing that, right? I mean, who wants to sit and talk about Diddy? I don't want to sit and talk about Diddy all day, right? Yes, it's very interesting. Yes, it's polarizing, but there are some things in this artistic community that we're going to attack. So, Create with Me helped me to streamline my vision, helped me to get to a space in which I am ready to give y'all what I have. So sit back, relax, and come on this journey with me for episode 3 of Crazed Conversations. Let's go, baby. So why do we create? All right, so as an artist, what is it about artistry that makes us want to create? What is it about art, whether that's photography, whether that's painting, whether that's acting, whether that's directing, whether that's even teaching? What is it about it that fulfills us as artists to be able to sit in a space and to create, right? And to help others create. Now, I love James Baldwin, you know what I mean? I really love his theory of thought. I love his school of thought, the way that he kind of projected things. And there's one specific quote in which I want to reach out to you guys about. All right, so James Baldwin said, "The artist's struggle for integrity must be considered as a kind of metaphor for the struggle, which is universal and daily, of all human beings to get to become human beings." So the very first thing about that quote that sticks out to me is the word integrity. Now, integrity is what, guys? Doing the right thing when no one is watching, right? As artists, I want to zone in on acting specifically, because that's what I do, right? Acting and directing. Now, as an actor, to have integrity in the space means that I'm not judging that character, right? I want to come to this character as a blank slate. I want to make sure that this character, whether good or bad or indifferent, is not judged by me, right? So I have to come into that space as a blank slate, as a humble individual stepping into the body of this different character. So the struggles of an actor attempting to get on stage and to create this whole human being, it does a metaphor of real life, right? So when you look at us as people, we're walking around every day. We're trying to become the best versions of ourselves, right? That takes us having to have integrity. That takes us having to do the right thing when no one is watching. That takes us having to build ourselves to make sure that we have skills, to make sure that we reflect what the world, well, not to reflect the world, but we want to be able to be a mirror up to humanity, right? And because, the world does have negative and positive aspects to them. So if you want to look at the Diddy case, for example, right? Diddy is not a saint, right? But he's also not the devil, right? Because he helped a lot of people. He helped bring people out of poverty. He helped feed thousands of people. But he also did some very bad things. And he was a sexual deviant. So you have to look at it as the integrity of it. Was he living his truth? Was he living integral as an actor? Right? Well, not as an actor, as an artist, sorry. Was he living his truth as an artist? Because if he was living his truth as an artist, his life should have reflected that, opposed to it reflecting something that he didn't want it to reflect, right? So it is a daily struggle. It is a universal and daily struggle. We all want to get better. We all want to be integral. We all want to move with integrity, right? I don't think I know anyone who strives on lying. I mean, there are a few people who I know like to lie, but I don't think they want to strive or be in that space continuously, right? So, I have a question. Do you guys think that struggle is necessary for us as artists to be truthful and integral on stage? Do we need the struggle in order to effectively portray these characters, right? Now, I believe that the function of art is to do more than just tell it like it is, right? It is to imagine what is possible and to use art as a catalyst to project our history and to hopefully solidify a space in our future, right? Especially as African Americans. So, art, we have to make sure that we are being integral about how we address the art, how we communicate with the art, and how we commune with the art. All right, guys, so we all know that slavery was abolished in America in 1867, right? So I want to talk about something that kind of predates slavery in the whole retrospect of art. So we all know that slavery was abolished in 1867, right? Or 1865, sorry. But did you guys know that in New York City, that it was actually abolished by that state in 1827? So while that space was going on, a lot of Africans and people, slaves who were born in America with African roots, they actually were living in New York City in a little space called Little Africa, right? So before slavery was actually abolished in New York City, there were black theaters, right? And this is going to be pretty dope. So back in the day, before they had actually fully functioning theaters, they would do these things called tea gardens or pleasure gardens, right? So tea gardens or pleasure gardens, they were specifically for white residents, and they would go in the heat of the summer, sit in the garden and watch some performances, right? And so that's kind of where the tea gardens or the pleasure gardens got their origination from. Now, in 1816, there was a man by the name of William Henry Brown, or William Alexander Brown, that settled in New York City, right? He settled at 3838 Thomas Street in Lower Manhattan. While there, he decided that he wanted to open up his own pleasure garden. He wanted to open up his own theater space. Well, it would eventually become a theater space. So by 1820, he opened up the African Grove Theater Party, right? The African Grove Theater Company. It started in his garden, and they would go around New York and they would tour to different spaces, right? Now, the person who actually helped him open up this theater, or the person who kind of looking for the word, motivated him. The person who actually motivated him to open up this theater was a man by the name of James Howlett. James Howlett, right? Now, James Howlett, as y'all don't know, he is the first African American Shakespearean actor, right? So the good thing that William Henry Brown did was they decided that they were going to open up a full-fledged black theater, and they began putting on their own performances around New York City. It is rumored that the African Grove Theater, they produced the first ever African American professional theater piece. All right. Now this is where things get a little bit, right? So while they were performing and while they were doing the African theater, there was another theater by the name of I think it was the Playhouse Theater, and it was a predominantly white theater space. And what ended up happening was this theater space, while the African Grove Theater was starting to bud. They were actually going through renovations due to a fire that they had. So the African American Grove Theater, they were pulling in white and black audiences before slavery was actually eradicated in New York City, right? So of course they faced prejudices, right? They were moved from space to space. They weren't allowed to perform on the same level as some of these as the other theater space, because it was only, I think, maybe one other theater in the state of New York. Well, in New York City at that time, not the state. So what ended up happening was, it was one night that when the new theater, the white theater, opened back up, and they were producing the play Othello. So during this time, the black theater actually rented a space next door to the actual theater, and they produced their own version of Othello on the same night as the white theater. So they both had rave reviews. It was good all the way around. But what ended up happening was the African Grove Theater was shut down, but it was shut down because of the other theater house. The other theater house paid white people to come in and to watch their plays. But when the white people were watching their plays, they would act so rambunctious that they would have to call the police over in order to get them under control, right? And so what that eventually ended up being was that eradicated the African Grove Theater, because the white theater did not like the competition. Now, the African Grove Theater was not the first time that Africans attempted to make theater in America, but it is the most prominent. It's the third time in New York City history that this type of theater was created. It is the most successful theater. And William Henry Brown was actually the first African American to produce a full-length play, written and directed by him, with his actual professional theater company. So theater has been around longer than slavery has been eradicated in America. Pretty interesting, right? Faith. Why, as a Christian, why do I yearn to get into a space where I'm the center of attention? Why do I yearn to have my voice heard, or for these bright lights to shine on me, right? So what we're going to be talking about is, how does fame and faith actually work hand in hand in theater, and whether that's a good thing or a negative thing, right? So for artists who are raised in church like I was, is it something that is positive to, can church and secular energy actually go hand in hand, so that we can reach the secular audience as well as we can help touch the church audience, right? So the first Bible verse that I wanted to talk about is Matthew 6:24, where it says, "No one can serve two masters. You cannot serve both God and money." So the second verse I want to talk about is Romans 12:2. "Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind." So is it plausible for us to be Christians and to step into a space to our voices to be heard, right? Is it a space for us to actually create and still be wholeheartedly sold out to our religion, and wholeheartedly live in this space that was curated by secular nature, but we want to try to put a Christian spin on it, right? And this is not a new thing, right? You can go back to artists such as Aretha Franklin and Sam Cooke. They both grew up in the church. They both give their roots to the church, but they were some of the biggest secular artists to this day of their time. Sorry. If you want to look at Whitney Houston, she is the voice, right? The literal voice, but she gets her roots from the church. And Aretha Franklin, Sam Cooke, Whitney Houston, they were all talked about heavily by the church community for going over to secular music opposed to staying true to their roots and which got them to where they needed to be. Now, let's go a little bit to more present day. Now, we have Kirk Franklin. We know Stomp, right? But he actually was the first to mix hip hop with gospel music, right? In order to bring a lot of people to the church. I know that Kirk Franklin was basically a soundtrack to my childhood, right? I wasn't allowed to listen to secular music growing up. And so Kirk Franklin was the closest thing that I had growing up to be able to really understand hip hop and to really get that genre of music and the beats and the heavy bass lines that come from hip hop, right? But Kirk Franklin also, I think he blurred the line so much that some of his songs are currently played in actual secular spaces. Like, it is not foreign for me to go out on brunch and the whole club is melodies from heaven rain down on me. Right? That's not foreign. It's not foreign for us to be out and in the middle of taking a shot that we might go into a whole full praise break, especially here in Houston, Texas, right? So these lines are blurred, but is it necessarily a negative thing, right? Somebody else I want to talk about is Kanye West. Now, we know Kanye West was an extremely secular artist. He has had many transformations, whether that's, we're not going to talk about his mental state, but what we will talk about is how he transformed from going to secular into Jesus is King, which is his full-blown gospel album, which he turned secular music back into gospel tracks. And he got a little bit of pushback from that because a lot of people were like, God doesn't need the devil to create music for him, but the devil needs God to create music for them, for the secular audience. But I think that it is something truly inspiring and something that's truly different for Kanye West to take out time to look at music that has inspired generations outside of the church and then utilize that to bring them into the church, to allow them to truly express praise, right? And to be unapologetic about it. Is being a Christian celebrity a contradiction? Can you be a Christian celebrity? Can you be at the top of your game, going out on red carpets, doing all of these things, getting paid for literally speaking the word of God? Like, is that a contradiction? You're famous because you're talking about Jesus. You're famous because you're doing these things, right? And is it truthful? Is it honest? Is there something that's missing there? Can fame be a platform for faith, or does it water it down? I think that no matter where the word is coming from, this is my personal opinion, no matter where the word is coming from, it's still the word, right? No matter how you receive it, as long as you receive it and you know the source in which it came from. No matter how you're fed, as long as your belly is full. That's kind of my theology when it comes to that, right? Because God can use rocks if he wants to scream out for him. He doesn't need Christians who are so sold out for him. He can use anybody. He can use a crackhead if he wants to, someone who's addicted to drugs to bring a true message, right? I feel like as Christians, well, some people wouldn't even consider me a Christian, but we'll get to that later. But I believe in Jesus, so yeah. But as Christians, I believe that we have to stop being so judgmental. We have to stop looking at things to be cookie cutter. We have to stop attempting to justify how we feel by putting other people down or belittling those people, right? Because we all have fallen short. So we can't sit here and act as though because someone has hit fame or someone has the ability to have a great platform that true faith can't come through, right? Of course, sometimes they say Christian music doesn't sell, blah, 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 right? But we're talking about just utilizing that specific platform. And so the last thing I want to talk about is have you felt as though your gift, right? I'm talking to our artists. Has your gift pulled you away from your faith? Have as an actor, do the same way how I sit here, I act, I podcast, I could be utilizing this charisma to be a preacher. I could be utilizing this charisma to bring more people to Christ. I could be utilizing this charisma to make differences. But I feel as though I'm doing that the same way without having to be hypocritical, right? I'm not acting like I'm somebody else. I'm not trying to pretend to be this holy person, but I do talk to my friends about God. I do walk in the space of spirituality. I believe that my gifts make room for me, and that room doesn't have to be in the church. The room has to be in a space where I can be a fisherman of man to bring more people to Christ, to bring more people to him, right? I don't really understand people who spend all their time in the church. And me, I was raised 6 days a week in the church, right? I was a youth leader. I was the lead of the step team. I was the lead of the mind team, right? I was in the choir rehearsal. I was help leading the youth teen summits. I was throwing revivals constantly. I did this for years of my life. And I truly believe that get out of the church, right? I think that it's a good place to go and recharge, to be around people who are like-minded like you. But you have to be out here. You have to reach people. You have to actually connect with people. And you can't do that if you're isolating yourself in a space. So anyway, y'all, that's Crazed Conversations for today. Hope you guys liked it. Hope you guys interact with me, right? I love y'all. Crazed Conversations.